Tajidelek.
Chate Tungu Gamu, Shokzeng Alayata, Tering Yanimitro, Litango Nelevions. O white crane, lend me your wings. I will fly not far away. From Litang I shall return. So the seventh, his son is Dalai Lama, was born in Litang, where my father was also born.
Tashi Delek. Good morning, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great honor and privilege to welcome you all to a very special occasion here in Frankfurt. As we gather and celebrate 90th birthday of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, a global symbol of peace, compassion, and wisdom. His 90th birthday is marked the beginning of the Year of Compassion, a global initiative by the Central Tibetan Administration to honor and celebrate his lifelong commitment to compassion, wisdom, and peace. My name is Nupur Hasija. I am the head of the programs at the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation in New Delhi office, and I am delighted to serve you as a master of ceremony this morning. This event is jointly organized by the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation for Freedom with the kind support of Air India and Taj Frankfurt. For decades, Friedrich-Naumann Foundation has remained committed to the values of freedom, democracy, and human dignity. Since 1991, our office in New Delhi has had the privilege of supporting Central Tibetan Administration. Our shared efforts focus on strengthening democratic institutions, building leadership capacity among Tibetans, and promoting awareness of Tibetan cause across Europe, particularly in Germany. We are especially honored that His Holiness has conveyed his blessings for this occasion. He has graciously sent a letter, which I have here with me, expressing the best wishes and heartful thanks. Here is the letter from His Holiness signed by him. Today's celebration is not only a tribute to the extraordinary life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but also a affirmation of these shared values. We will celebrate His Holiness not only through speeches, but through music as well, which you just heard, through a voice that carries the soul of Tibet, its longing, its strength, and its joy. I would like to introduce you to Loten Namling, is a Tibetan musician, singer, multimedia artist, and activist born in Darjeeling, India, to Tibetan refugee parents and now based in Switzerland. Traveling the world with this lute, he performs traditional Tibetan songs, including songs of the second Dalai Lama, as well as his own compositions, all of which carry the spirit of a people in exile who refuse to surrender their identity. His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, once called Loten Namling a singer with a voice. Today, his music does not merely accompany this program, it gives voice to everything this occasion stands for: freedom, compassion, and enduring spirit of Tibet. Thank you so much, Namling, for being here today. Can we have applause for... We are honored to have with us an exceptional line of speakers and contributors who will reflect on the life, teachings, and global impact of His Holiness. To begin the morning, I would like to invite Professor Karl-Heinz Paqué, President of Liberal International and former chairman of the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation. Under his chairmanship, the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation continued its long-standing support for the Tibetan cause, above all its commitment to the democratization of the Tibetan government in exile, a process that Foundation has been fostering since 1991. As president of the Liberal International, the world organization of liberal and progressive parties, he stands for a global liberal order. His opening remarks today set the stage for a tribute rooted in both conviction and responsibility. I would like to welcome Professor Paqué.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, dear distinguished guests, let me first of all say a cordial welcome to you all to this wonderful event this sunny Saturday morning here in Frankfurt. We are proud to have gathered such a group of distinguished people in this room. Notably, I would particularly welcome our Indian friends and Tibetan friends who are with us today. It's a great honor to have a collection of wonderful people today here to celebrate the 90th birthday of His Highness. Ladies and gentlemen, let me briefly address a few persons in particular in this room. I would like to welcome specifically Professor Roland Koch, former Minister President of Hesse, Christian Democrat, great friend of us liberals over decades. We appreciate that. And he was Minister President of a state, the state of Hesse, which has a long-standing relationship to the Dalai Lama. And I also welcome Peter Heidt, former member of the FDP parliamentary group responsible at the time for Tibetan relationships. Welcome today here in this, at this event. In the course of this morning, Sujeet Kumar, Member of Parliament from India, Professor Martin Mittwede, Professor Heidt Singh Sikent, Professor Samdhong Rinpoche, I hope I pronounced it correct, former Prime Minister of the Central Tibetan Administration, will make contributions. I also welcome you all to this event this morning. I would also like to issue a special welcome to Stefan Schott, who runs our office in New Delhi, and to Nupur Hasia, who's going to guide us this morning as Master of Ceremony through the event. Thank you very much that you made the way here to Frankfurt. You have a big program in Germany, and we are extremely happy in the Foundation to strengthen with your presence the presence of India and Tibet in the minds of responsible people in Germany. Thank you very much for your work in India. And finally, let me thank Mr. Verma and Mr. Frank from Air India and Steigenberger, the Steigenberger Group, who generously supported this event. We are very happy and satisfied with the cooperation. This was extremely important for us. Thank you very much for the sponsoring. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this occasion is not only a tribute to a remarkable spiritual leader, but also a reflection on values that are more urgent today than ever before: freedom, compassion, responsibility, and peaceful dialogue. As former chairman of the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation for Freedom, this moment carries special meaning. Since 1991, more than 30 years ago, we have had the unique privilege of working closely with the Central Tibetan Administration, the democratic government of Tibetans' exile, based in India. Over the decades, the partnership has grown, not only in scope, but also in spirit. FNF, the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation for Freedom, is proud to be the only German political foundation that has consistently supported the Tibetan community through direct engagement with His Holiness. FNF's cooperation has evolved alongside a remarkable journey from advocating the middle way approach, which calls for genuine autonomy and the preservation of Tibetan culture and language, to supporting the development of democratic institutions in exile. The Friedrich-Naumann Foundation has been honored to support this transformation, not only through capacity building with the Tibetan community, but also by promoting the Tibetan cause across Europe and Germany. Our commitment is rooted in the liberal values we uphold, values that resonate deeply with the teachings of His Holiness. freedom, self-determination, human dignity, and dialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, in this context, I would like to remember with great respect Otto Graf Lambsdorff, former chairman of our foundation, who was a close friend and strong supporter of the Tibetan cause. I am told that even today, His Holiness recalls the Friedrich Naumann Foundation when Count Lambsdorff is mentioned, when his name is mentioned, reflecting the enduring bond that was built through trust and shared values. What makes truly extraordinary is the vision and leadership of His Holiness. At a time when history could have taken a very different course, one of anger or confrontation, he chose a path of peace, of restraint, and of dialogue. Instead of calling for revenge or aggression, he championed autonomy, dignity, and coexistence. Even more remarkable is his voluntary transfer of political authority to developing democratic institutions. In so doing, he ensured that the Tibetan struggle would not only endure, but would be guided by democratic principles for generations to come. This stands as one of the most unique and the most inspiring achievements of democracy in exile. Today, as we look around the world, we see conflicts, we see divisions, and an increasing erosion of trust between nations and societies. In such times, the teachings of His Holiness are not only relevant, they are essential. He reminds us that even in moments of tension, of high tension, even of wars, humanity must prevail over hostility, dialogue over confrontation, and compassion over indifference. Ladies and gentlemen, we are also pleased to have with us, I said it already, the FNF India Country Director, Stefan Schott, and I would like to congratulate him for his dedicated work in strengthening, in particular, our cooperation with the Tibetan democratic institutions and for advancing our shared mission in India. As we celebrate what has been called the Year of Compassion, a wonderful title, the Year of Compassion, marking His Holiness' 19th birthday or birth year, we are reminded that his legacy is not confined to Tibet alone. It is a global legacy, one that speaks to all of humanity. Let us take inspiration from his life's work. Let us reaffirm our commitment to freedom, to democracy, and to peaceful dialogue. And let us continue to stand with those who strive to preserve their identity, their culture, their dignity in the face of adversity. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish us all a wonderful morning.
Thank you so much, Professor Paqué. It is now my pleasure to invite Professor Dr. Roland Koch, former Minister, President of Hesse, and a long-standing friend and advocate of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He's one of Germany's most respected senior statesmen. Over nearly 4 decades, he has maintained a close personal friendship with His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama and has consistently advocated for Tibet's right to culture and spiritual freedom. Today, he speaks as a long-standing friend and the advocate of His Holiness and his legacy. Professor Koch.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation. Thank you very much to the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation for doing that. I think that's really important, and it's impressing our long-standing this activity of the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation is. I remember when I had the honor to meet Dalai Lama in the mid of the 80s, the first time, and we started thinking about political organization of the Tibetan community worldwide towards politics. It was not so self-understanding that the political organization of Germany took responsibility for that. And so we were very happy in 1991 that Friedrich-Naumann Foundation did it, and I think it's also has to be said that they paid some price for that, because the relationship of the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation towards China over the time was very much under pressure. And it needs the strength and the braveness of the people being responsible of the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation of that time. And of course, it was a very, very, very important impact that Otto Graf Lambsdorff supported that all the time as a very senior person. And the second part is I'm extremely happy to have Professor Samdhong Rinpoche today as our guest of honor. Because that has to do a lot with the legacy of the modern Tibetan perception, but also with our relationship to Hessen. As you know, the Dalai Lama had been very often here in this state. The friends of the Dalai Lama here produced a book, and we counted and we saw it 50 times that he visited the state in that, which, to be honest, is in a certain part also the privilege of having Frankfurt Airport. So that stopovers were very often an occasion to also be here and to meet people. And I remember a lot of breakfasts between 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning and discussing specific items. And he always was very awake at that part of the time, to be honest. Samdhong Rinpoche was not only one of the most important advisors of His Holiness for such a long time, he also took the stage as the first Prime Minister of the Central Tibetan Administration, as we call it today, as a Tibetan government in exile. We started to pronounce it in the beginning to make our Chinese colleagues sometimes more aggressive, and so I think it's diplomatic-wise correct now to talk about that, because the responsibility of this government is not only to present Tibet to the whole world, it's also to take care of so many Tibetan people in India and in other countries all around the world. And honorable member of the Parliament of India, I think all the world community has to say thank you to the Indian people and the Indian politics of all the time that they are hosting our Tibetan friends in that way and defending them in any case and enable them to live in settlements and to have a chance to continue with their cultural life there, which is an important part of securing the chance of having the full entry of the Tibetan culture to everyone in the world, but also to those who are born as Tibetans and should know about their history and their culture and their language, even if it's such under pressure as we see it until today. So also it's a very, very, very warm thank you to the Indian community in that. Samdhong visited also the state of Hessen very often, but to decide with this very well advanced age, and is now to come back to us here to say, I take over all these, to fly in and to be here for some days to meet the president of the parliament of the state and the mothers. That's very important for us to have this contact, and I think it should be mentioned in Frankfurt that His Holiness was very much incentivized by Samdhong Rinpoche to dedicate one of the very few houses of Tibet which are formally accepted in that way. It's only 4, I think, in the world today, to Frankfurt. And it was Samdhong who explained that to His Holiness, and the 2 people, the Holiness of Dalai Lama and Samdhong Rinpoche, were in the end the fathers of the actual Tibet house in Frankfurt, and therefore a long-standing cooperation with that. So thank you very much also to that, to Samdhong here in that part. And being a Bedouin, I was very proud that Samdhong represented the Tibetan government in exile when I left my office, and there he was representing that. Again, there are some countries who are not quite happy about that, but we in Hessen were very happy about that. So having you all here and talking about the legacy of the Dalai Lama, of course, is not the right point for an opening remark. So only very few sentences. I think we all who are engaged in supporting Tibet have always to have in mind that there are 3 dimensions. The first dimension is, I think, that we have to take care of the people who are still under the pressure of a potential genocide inside China. The actual decision of the Chinese government to skip the permission to teach the Tibetan language in the public schools is one of the most serious attacks over the last decades against self-determination and the cultural identity of these people. And we have a lot of other activities over a long time, which influx of bringing people from other parts of mainland China to Tibet, the whole education system, the privileges for Chinese in jobs, the destroying of so many monasteries over the time, to all the risks when you have to be a monk today in this country. This all is now again intensified by people not allowing to have the language, and when the children come to their home, they are speaking a language which they are not allowed to speak at school. And we all know from our own experiences with migration that this is a big issue, and that is a very, very serious attack to that. So we have still to take care, even if the world political atmosphere is not so good, to talk with the Chinese leaders about that, actually. This is a big point. This is just an issue of humanity, to talk about the situation of the Tibetan people. And the second point is that the Dalai Lama, in his lifetime, in this world of modern communication, which was quite new also for him. We had him at, I think, when he celebrated his 70th birthday here in Wiesbaden, we had him together with Heinrich Harrer, this famous book author who was one of the first Europeans who met the Dalai Lama in an extremely young age. It was the first time he saw a film camera. You know, this is the beginning of a world of experience which ends in the social network communication of today all around the world. And the Dalai Lama was able, not becoming an influencer, but using all these instruments over the time in getting influence by being accessible for everybody in the world with his thoughts, his ideas, his lectures, and so became an international, accepted and needed person of ethical standards, far beyond religion. I remember that we always discussed that he didn't attack my Catholic part and I don't attack his Tibetan part. So he said, I'm not interested in that. I'm a person who tries to bring in this sort of freedom of morality, of inner peace, of interacting with other peoples which are totally different from you on a level of accepting the differences and with a lot of patience. And this became a standard of thinking and a point of orientation for others in the world, how to think about those things. And this is a very important role. And the third role, again, is his responsibility for the Tibetan people in a political dimension. He decided to prepare all that for decades as it is organized today. And we all know that as he said, first of all, I'm a human being, then I'm a monk, and then I'm a Tibetan. The risk is that he's really a human being, which means that at the age of 90, you start thinking about the question, what is after my time? And I think it's a very great thinking he had over decades to prepare that. So the whole split of religion authority and political authority, the installation of a democratic society of the Tibetans in the whole world, with having an own prime minister directly elected, with the system, also the liberals would, I don't know, the new Sikong, the new prime minister is elected or was re-elected, got 61% of the votes and was very lucky because if he would have got 59% of the vote, then it's the second round. So the only chance to be elected in the first round is to be 60% of support, which means the unification of the country is, and he got 61, so he was lucky, and will be there for the next year. But they have a fully standard democratic organization of the Tibetan people in the world, which is an extremely important part of stability for the future, to present the ideas and to protect the people in Tibet and to support the people in the world who are interested in the thoughts and thinking and traditions and rituals of this religion. This is a legacy. And I'd like to end here to say what is what the Dalai Lama is. The Dalai Lama is a fascinating person, is a great leader. In my personal sense, he's a great friend. But he changed the world. He is one of the very few people in the world who decided to defend its own people just with non-violent, peaceful means. He is a standard for that. And my attempt to support him was always that when we let this only person who gives us that standard is losing, is not supported by us, then that has a dramatic consequence for the thinking about how you can protect your people. Do you always can that only do with violence? Or is there also an alternative concept? But we didn't win until now. So the question of the Dalai Lama is, how can I get a certain kind of consecution in the whole world? And I think when we're talking about the legacy of His Holiness and his 90th birthday and all what we did, we should always think that the signals of all what he does is a certain part also to us. It's without all of us, everything he did will not be good enough and long-standing enough to achieve these key goals, to protect the own people and to give the world an option of a certain kind of thinking which creates a more peaceful society. And though you now took us Saturday morning to convey here, to listen to us, and especially to Samdhong Rinpoche, you are the starting point of that. And even if this will work, the legacy of the Dalai Lama is more than just a celebration. Have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Koch, for your insightful words. We now move to Naming for some more music, and then we'll come to the second segment of our program today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Koch. Many years ago, I saw you on a stage far away, and today I'm so honored to be next to you. And it's amazing that, I've heard so much about you, living in Switzerland, of course. And today I really experienced your heart for Tibet and the knowledge that you have about Tibet. So thank you so much for supporting Tibet. So last year, just before the 6th of July, that is the beginning of the 90th birthday celebration of His Holiness Dalai Lama, I was invited to sing for him. And then, of course, a few days before that, I landed in Delhi. I had some little bit of problem with the visa, blah, blah, blah. And when I was a little boy, I was given a flute as small as this from a friend of mine. And then somehow, it broke. I will not tell you how it broke, otherwise you will cry. It's emotional. But anyway, so for a long time, I never touched a flute. But then when I was in Delhi last year, I came to this idea that now I must close the cycle of this, the urge to play the flute. And so in Delhi on internet, I searched a teacher. I found a teacher. And for 5 days, I was just fruitlessly blowing this, flute all the time. But anyway, today, after 6, 7, 8 months, I played on the stage, not because of ego or that I can do something, but this flute is from India. And India is, like His Holiness all the time says, he has eaten rice and dal. And I've eaten rice and dal every day, So I made almost India. Of course, my heart goes to Tibet, but so anyway, yeah, it's amazing. So some people tell me, Loten, you have to perfect it before you go on the stage. Then I tell maybe I will die tomorrow. So I'm happy that today I'm playing for you the flute, and especially for Rinpoche and for all of you. And this song is a song by one of the greatest yogis of Tibet. His name is Milarepa. And Milarepa, about 900 years ago, I need not tell you much about Milarepa because then you can Google today and find out all on ChatGPT and all those things. But anyway, this song is a song of compassion. It's a song of generating love and compassion. And I just want to play it for you. Jilame kula soa ade tangri tu sin ba Ngagi ba yingi ma zo shi du ba ta yi ma zo war return diru chi na ne jo samba zo ba yin Geba togi maso shin nawa sing me maso war return diru chi na ne jo samba zo ba yin shiva mi so shin roru chai ma thong war return diru chi ne jo samba zo ba yin mi me lumbe ta a pu du tang bo chi ve me la Dove tundu te ba shu temna samba
Thank you, Namingla, for this really beautiful, soulful music. Now I have the pleasure to invite Professor Dr. Martin Mittwede. He's a professor of religious studies at Goethe University in Frankfurt, where his work explores the intersection of spiritual traditions, dialogue, and human dignity. His tribute today reflects on how His Holiness has bridged ancient wisdom and contemporary challenges. Professor Mittwede brings to this occasion both scholarly depth and genuine reverence of the Tibetan tradition. Over to you, Dr. Professor.
Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me as a scholar of religious studies and a psychotherapist to speak in honor of Tenzin Gyatso, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, on the occasion of his 90th birthday. From a Buddhist perspective, the birthday of a human body is not a special occasion for celebration. Rather, appreciation for a person should be cultivated throughout the whole year. And this brings us to an important difference between the European and Asian worldviews. We generally assume that a feeling is a kind of natural phenomenon over which we have no control. That's just the way it is. I feel this, and this is my reality. In Asia, influenced by Buddhism and Hinduism, the realization developed early that we can practice and train our feelings, attitudes towards life, thought patterns, and worldviews. Consciousness is malleable and can be developed. And it is this potential for development that allows us to become truly human. Today we know that our brain is a malleable organ and that through practicing meditation and yoga or learning to play a musical instrument and so on, we can bring about a real change in the brain. Spirituality and mysticism are no longer forms of delusion or pathological disorder, but describe the potential within every human being to develop their brain and thereby their psyche in such a way that it can reflect what the Dalai Lama speaks of time and again in his countless lectures, seminars, and travels, of compassion, of tolerance, of the capacity for universal love, of the lived experience that humanity and all life embody a unity. Whom should we honor today? The wise religious leader? The non-violent, far-sighted politician? The humble monk? The embodiment of universal compassion? The true human being? Or the ordinary person? Many of you will probably agree and say all of this and much more. Michael von Brück, a scholar of religion closely associated with the Dalai Lama, wrote, "How is it possible that a person, after such severe blows of fate and bearing the responsibility for a people whose very existence is threatened, can be so humorous, kind, and deeply optimistic? This seems almost superhuman to us. Yet, according to the Dalai Lama, it is the result of long practice and inner work on his own hot temper in his youth. In various religious traditions, there are quite a few religious leaders who sit aloof on their respective thrones and seem to have little contact with contemporary reality. religious institutions usually have a long history and a strong sense of tradition. They resist progress. They reject scientific findings. They engage in power politics and much more. This has done immense damage to the reputation of religious institutions. When the Dalai Lama spoke at a panel discussion on the topic of ethics beyond religion at Frankfurt Paulskirche in 2014, he said, as I recall it, meditation should be freed from all ideological baggage, scientifically researched, and then the methods proven to be effective should be introduced everywhere into the education system. As a scholar of religion, I can tell you that Tibetan Buddhism is one of the traditions that has probably developed some of the most comprehensive philosophical concepts on the subject of meditation. So there would be an almost infinite amount of ideological baggage that could be shed in Tibet. Why then would a leading representative of religion say such a thing? Why does he want to shed baggage? Well, I think the Dalai Lama has clearly recognized that this is about much more than his own tradition. For him, the development of compassion and empathetic awareness is a universal task. All well-meaning people should join forces here to achieve something positive for humanity. His program is a path to sustainable problem solving in which he strives for scientifically grounded insights followed by practical implementation. When asked certain questions, he says bluntly that he is not particularly well-versed in the subject. He says one must ask the experts and scientists to arrive at an answer. This is precisely what characterizes his way of thinking. He does not assume that he or his tradition has all the answers ready. Rather, he regards Buddhism as a quest for comprehensive insight and wisdom. Now, in his own words, and that is why I believe that all religions have the potential to contribute to peace, which must begin in people's minds. Here, the Dalai Lama reveals himself to be a modern thinker who has absolutely no problem with globalization, issues of multiculturalism, multi-ethnicity, economic interdependence, and so on. Rather, his concern is to explore how the rapid changes in the world can be shaped in a human way. Philosophically, his Buddhist philosophy aids him in this, with the concept of interdependence and the significant role rationality plays within it. He consistently manages to strike a balance between realism and the supernatural, between reason and faith, between religion and science. Even though he is a monk, his statements repeatedly demonstrate a great appreciation for earthly life. He does not devalue the things of existence, but rather values them. Naturally, the tantric background of his tradition plays a role there. Dalai Lama speaks. You human must work together and live in harmony with one another. For this reason, various religions must also draw closer together and learn from one another. There is no alternative to this. Learning from one another is, I believe, one of the cornerstones of his thinking. It is an expression of his great curiosity, his deep-seated interest in humanity and all that it produces. This is linked to a great openness to scientific thinking and empirical research and what we would wish for from all religious leaders. Let me point out that spiritual traditions and philosophies, in a sense, anticipated what we, as proud Europeans, consider to be unique, namely the Enlightenment, with all the great philosophers like Immanuel Kant, etc. Spiritual philosophy has been universal in its thinking since around 1000 BC, making no distinction between skin color, gender, or social status. It transcends all these differences and points to an essence that may be named differently, but can be defined as common to all. At the same time, spiritual philosophy is concerned with liberation of humanity, with liberation from bondage, with liberation from immaturity, and with the development of a state of consciousness in which there are no longer any dogmas, ideological constraints, or mental prisons. A person with the consciousness of freedom and compassion is a living, liberated one. In Sanskrit we say Jivan Mukta. Or it is a person who has attained the purity of wise realization, Bodhisattva. Or in Christianity would say it's a God-loving being. Or whatever we may choose to call her or him. The Dalai Lama lives the spiritual philosophy in his thinking, feeling, and acting. Yet he does not remain stuck in an unworldly idealism, but embeds spirituality within ethics and meaningful action in the world. This makes him a democrat who not only tolerates other opinions, but also welcomes them in order to learn from them himself and to question his own standpoint. Just how important this is becomes particularly clear in today's socially and politically heated media discourse. The risk that violence in language will also breed violence in society is immensely high. In my field of research, traditional Indian medicine, which has much in common with Tibetan medicine, it is part of the traditional training to take turns representing different opinions on the patient's illness during discussions. For example, after 30 minutes, one must adopt the opposing view and argue in its favor. This is intended to help establish the most accurate diagnosis. In Tibetan Buddhism, the art of debate is firmly embedded in the educational system. Such debates were even held in public. They were events with an entertaining character and demonstrated how a plurality of opinions can coexist on an equal footing. Dalai Lama. Since there are so many different types of people with different backgrounds and inclinations, the differences between religions are helpful. It is important when enduring different traditions to get to know and understand the other's position in order to perceive and learn to appreciate the specific characteristics of each religion. Anyone familiar with Buddhism can see, on the one hand, how the Dalai Lama has remained true to his own tradition. Whilst at the same time drawing on his philosophical approaches, he is a great reformer to democratize his own government in exile or to engage in an open dialogue with theologians from all major religions, as well as with scientists, engineers, and politicians. A dialogue that has proved to be formative and fruitful. Since the 19th century, we have been able to observe counter-trends to modernization in society. In religious groups, this manifests itself in backward-looking attitudes, fundamentalism, and sometimes even fanatism. People who are uprooted and plagued by fear seek the old certainties and a literal interpretation of the sacred scriptures. Societies have become too complex and too intertwined. Consequently, people seek simple answers to complex questions. We need, and this is essential, not only economic globalization, but also an inner globalization for people. The Dalai Lama's thinking repeatedly revolves around this theme. It is important, he says, when encountering different traditions, to get to know and understand the other's position in order to perceive and learn to appreciate the specific characteristics of each religion. Ultimately, we can trace these ideas back within the context of Buddhism to the Emperor Ashoka, who was living 304 to 232 BC, who publicly set out ethical standards for coexistence, particularly between different religious traditions in his edicts. So, good ideas have no expiry dates. For all the idealism with which one might view the pursuit of a peaceful world, the Dalai Lama demonstrates clear realism and pragmatism on many issues. He does not envisage a single world religion. Rather, he considers it essential to embrace plurality and differences of opinion as a positive value. To grasp this, humanity and even each individual still have a long way to go. In the pursuit of peace and tolerance, religious institutions should really set an example. Yet, all too often, the opposite is the case. The call for an awareness of unity is another significant philosophical theme that the Dalai Lama touches upon time again. To explore this in depth and trace it through the history of Indian, Tibetan, and Greek Western philosophy would probably acquire a much longer lecture, with which I do not wish to bore you. So in conclusion, all that remains for me to do is to let the Dalai Lama speak once more in his own words. In my view, he says, the solution to the world's current problems depends crucially on humanity becoming aware of its true unity. This applies to economic and political problems, to thinking in terms of military blocs, and to racism. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Professor Mittwede. Now I have a pleasure of inviting my Member of Parliament from India, Sujeet Kumar, representing the state of Odisha. As an Indian parliamentarian, he has been a committed supporter of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, including advocacy of conferral of India's highest civilian honor upon him. His presence today embodies India's unique and historic role as the country that offered refuge to the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan exile community following the events of 1959. He has been a vocal advocate for Tibetan rights, religious freedom, and preservation of Tibetan culture identity on the international stage. His tribute speaks on touching lives, speaks to the deeply personal impact His Holiness has had on millions of people across the world. Mr. Sujeet Kumar, over to you.
Most revered Samdhong Rinpoche, ladies and gentlemen, Tasidelek, Namaste, good morning, Guten Tag, is that how you say in German? It's a deep honor and a delight to be here in this beautiful city of Frankfurt, thanks to FNF, to pay tribute to the monumental legacy of His Holiness. 10 minutes is what I've been offered to speak about His Holiness. As a politician, and there are many politicians in the room, they will appreciate that it's impossible to limit a politician to 10 minutes. So, but nevertheless, I'll try my best. But I must express my deepest gratitude, my profuse gratitude to the great nation of Germany and to the German people for their support of the Tibetan cause, for their friendship, and for being extremely vocal in supporting His Holiness and the Tibetan people. Why do I, an Indian, a Hindu, I'm not a Tibetan, I'm not a Buddhist, so why do I, an Indian and a Hindu at that, why do I express my gratitude to the Tibetan people? To the German nation and to German people. You know, we Indians, we Hindus, just like the Buddhists, we believe in previous lives or rebirth. And I genuinely believe that in one of my previous lives, maybe, I don't know which birth it was, I must have been a Tibetan, for sure. And when I told this to His Holiness, he just laughed like a child. Let me begin with a Sanskrit mantra. In fact, the Tibetan mantra, which is very widely recited, Om Mani Padme Hum, that's also a Sanskrit verse. There is another Sanskrit mantra verse which actually encapsulates the teachings of His Holiness. Asoto ma sadgamaya, tamoso ma jyotirgamaya, mrutyung ma amritang gamaya, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Which means, Lord, lead me from falsehood to truth, lead me from evil to goodness, and lead me from death into immortality. Immortality not in the bodily sense, what Dr. Martin just beautifully articulated, because body, both in Hindu religion and the Buddhist religion, is made of the 5 elements, and it's mortal, but the soul is immortal, and that's what His Holiness has been teaching. My personal engagement with the Tibetan cause and with His Holiness started in 2004. And because of the paucity of time, I will not get into it. But I do share at least one thing in common with His Holiness. His Holiness was invested with the temporal duties of the Tibetan government by the then government, Ganden Phordang, in 1950, on 17th of November. And that's the day when I came into this world, 25 years later. So at least there is something in common between that great soul and mere person like me. But a personal anecdote will tell you how simple and childlike he is, which is probably the most beautiful quality of His Holiness. I come from the beautiful state of Odisha in the eastern coast of India. And Dr. Martin was talking about the great Emperor Asoka. Asoka used to be called Chandaka Asoka, meaning the evil emperor. And he had conquered most of peninsular India, but not Kalinga, which is the former name of Asoka, of Odisha, the state I belong to. So Odisha was formerly known as Kalinga. So in 261 BCE, he conquered Asoka, Chandaka. He conquered Kalinga, the then Kalinga, and close to 150,000 people died in that war. It's called the Kalinga War of 261 BCE. And he was so deeply moved by the pain and suffering of the war that the great Emperor Asoka became from Chandaka Asoka to Dharma Asoka, meaning from the evil emperor to Dharma means good. I mean, there's no precise definition of the word Dharma, but it means goodness and what is pious. So, in Odisha, in the state of Odisha, we have a magnificent temple in a place called Puri. It's called the Jagannath Temple. In fact, the English word Jagannath comes from that temple. So His Holiness wanted to visit the temple and see the Lord Jagannath in 2003. And this is what I'm telling is from the horse's mouth, from His Holiness himself. And because there was some rituals going on in the temple was closed, and he was not allowed entry into the temple because there were some rituals for a couple of days. The temple is dedicated to Lord Vishnu, one of the main gods of the Hindu pantheon. So disappointed, His Holiness, of course, could not see the Lord, and he came back. And in 2009, I think it was 8 or 9, I can't recall exactly, but it was probably 9. I went to Dharamshala to see His Holiness. I had an audience with him. And I took a framed photograph of the Lord Jagannath. And I presented to him. And he said, see, because I could not see the Lord came to see me. So that's His Holiness. I think Professor Paqué actually summarized what I would have said, that to celebrate his legacy is to understand that the teachings of His Holiness are not only relevant to us today, but they're essential. This is exactly what Professor Paqué said. And that beautifully summarizes the essence of this legacy, great legacy. And Professor Roland, you mentioned about India, hosting His Holiness and close to 80,000 Tibetan refugees. I'm a huge critic of our first Prime Minister Nehru, who was the Prime Minister of India from 1947 until 1964, until his death. I'm a huge critic of his Tibetan policy and his India-China policy. But I must really, pay my highest regards to him that in 1959, when His Holiness left Tibet, his motherland, with his followers, Prime Minister Nehru offered asylum to him. It must have been, imagine the great cost, at what great cost India and Prime Minister Nehru offered that asylum to His Holiness and to his refugees. And it has been 67 years since Tibetans have been living in India and of course other parts of the world, but large number of Tibetans reside in India. And not a single instance of any major issue with the local community. There are close to 15 settlements in India, including one in my own state of Odisha. And as the former convener of the All-Party Indian Parliamentary Forum on Tibet, I visited most of the settlements. And it's a tribute to the Tibetan people, and a tribute to His Holiness' influence over the Tibetan people and his teachings, that in 67 long years, every country in the world today is struggling with, how to cope with immigrants, how to cope with insiders versus outsiders. But just imagine 67 long years, the Tibetans, close to 100,000 Tibetans, between 80,000 to 100,000 Tibetans live in India, but not a single instance of any conflict with the local Indian population. That's the greatness of His Holiness. And as we celebrate the year of compassion, as we celebrate the 90th birthday of the birth year of His Holiness, 6th of June is not too far away. That's the International Day of Compassion. And we must forget that we must not forget that He's one spiritual leader Of course, I believe that he's the greatest spiritual leader. He's the living Buddha. I believe that he's the greatest spiritual leader on earth today. We must not forget that he's one spiritual leader, one religious leader. I would not call him a religious leader, but let's call him a spiritual leader, who did not hesitate to call on, to find fault with his own brethren, the Buddhists. In 2013, when the Buddhists indulged in violence against the Myanmarese Muslim, the Rohingya Muslims, His Holiness had the courage, and probably the only person in the world today who would have had that kind of courage, to call on the Buddhists to stop that senseless violence against the Muslims of Myanmar. Name one prophet or leader or religious guru who would have had that kind of courage. Not to mention that, he had the temporal and the political powers of the Tibetan community vested on him. He voluntarily gave it up. I find it rather difficult to comprehend as a politician to give up political power. But that's His Holiness, that's the man, that's the the great soul that we are talking of. Oneness of humanity, oftentimes is asked as to what is the solution to the conflict that we witness in the world today? And he speaks of oneness of humanity. Oneness of humanity, again, is a concept which is there in the ancient Indian texts. In the Hindu text, we call Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. If we really want to solve or at least address or mitigate the challenges of the world, then we have to go back to this timeless philosophy, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. Whether it's the scourge of climate change or terrorism or epidemic, you name it. If you genuinely believe that we are all in it together, then only we can resolve some of these challenges. And this is one of the greatest teachings of His Holiness. And a lot has been said about love, compassion, non-violence. I think in 1989, when the Nobel Peace Committee decided to confer on him the Nobel Peace Prize, they quoted Mahatma Gandhi, another great human being to have walked on this earth, who genuinely believed and could rally his countrymen against the mighty British Empire by following the path of non-violence. And His Holiness has never shied away from acknowledging this, that his path of non-violence has been inspired by Mahatma Gandhi and of course by the Indian teachings as well. Resilience. Imagine being out of your own motherland for 67 long years. And I think it was Professor Martin or maybe Professor Roland, who was admiring the resilience of the Tibetan people and how they never lose temper. I also find that quite fascinating. As a politician, we live very stressful lives, and almost every day I lose my temper at least 50 times. But not once in my lifetime have I ever seen a monk, a Tibetan monk, or a normal Tibetan person lose his temper. Maybe Reverend Samdhong Rinpoche can give us some tips on how to not lose temper and be calm and resilient. So, when we talk of freedom, compassion, and responsibility, while paying tribute to His Holiness, I always urge my Tibetan brothers and sisters that patience and resilience is something that you need to have in abundance. I always give the example of India. We got independence from the British. At one point of time, it was said that the sun never sets in the British Empire. And Dr. Shashi Tharoor, one of the prominent Indian politicians in the opposition party, in an Oxford University debate, had said that the sun never set in the British Empire because even the gods would not trust the British in dark. But be that as it may, at one point of time we read that the British Empire colonized more than 60 countries, but we got independence in 1947 after 200 years of struggle. So I always tell my Tibetan brothers and sisters, don't lose hope. It's very, very important to keep the issue alive. And particularly the youngsters. Leverage, make use of the power of social media. Please tell your story. You are not telling enough. And this is why PRC is getting away with telling one-sided story about the history of Tibet. So please tell your story, tell your narrative. It doesn't cost anything. All you need is dedication and willingness to tell your story to the world. Because almost everyone has been convinced by China that what is happening in Tibet is an internal issue of China. It's not. Tibet is not an internal issue of China. So without going into the politics of it, please, I urge all my Tibetan friends to make use of the power of social media to tell your story, and don't lose hope. Your struggle is only 75 years old, maybe 70 years old. We got independence after 200 years, so it will happen. So. Thank you again, FNF, for inviting me.
Thank you, Sujeet Kumar, for a very encouraging tribute to the Tibetans. Now I have a pleasure of inviting Dr. Peter Heidt. He's a German lawyer and a politician of Free Democratic Party who served as spokesperson for human rights and the humanitarian aid for FDP parliamentary group in 19th German Bundestag. He's the member of advisory board of the Tibet Initiative and has consistently advocated for the rights of the Tibetan people, religious freedom, and protection of threatened cultural identities. In his tribute, he speaks to the global resonance of the Dalai Lama's message of compassion and peaceful coexistence. Mr. Peter Heidt's presence today underscores the importance of sustained political engagement on behalf of Tibet. I welcome Dr. Tibet.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, His Holiness plays a central role in global Tibetan networks, both as a spiritual leader and as a symbol of national identity and cultural survival. His influence, however, extends far beyond the Tibetan community. He has succeeded in generating global interest in Tibet and placing the Tibet question on the global agenda. This stands non-violence as the path the Dalai Lama has always advocated, even though Tibet remains occupied by China. Fundamental human rights are trampled underfoot by China. Thousands of caterers have been sent to even the most remote provinces to implement the decisions of the Communist Party. As the 14th Dalai Lama, he embodies compassion and thus central values such as non-violence, kindness, and spiritual clarity. This universal ethic, not tied to Buddhism, makes him a moral leader. He describes himself as a simple monk, which makes him approachable and inspires trust. His teaching on secular ethics and fundamental human values appeal to both religious and non-religious people. His particular concern is the peaceful coexistence of religions. He considers secular ethics transcending all religions more important than religious instruction. This secular ethic of the Dalai Lama transcends national, religious, and cultural boundaries and outlines values that are universal binding for all people. These are not external, immortal values, but internal values such as mindfulness, compassion, spiritual training, and the pursuit of happiness. He once said, if we want to be happy ourselves, we should practice composition. And if we want others to be happy, we should also practice composition. We all prefer to see smiling faces rather than gloomy ones. And he laughed as he said this. The Dalai Lama also possesses a very high optimism, which he always shows, and his laughter is truly legendary. The Dalai Lama is not only a spiritual leader, but also a symbol of Tibetan resistance and the hope of peace and freedom. His role in global Tibetan networks is of great importance, both preserving Tibetan culture and for promoting global interest in the Tibetan cause. Since fleeing to India, His Holiness has transformed the Tibetan independence movement into an international network with spiritual, cultural, and political support. Through his charismatic presence and his ability to translate complex political problems into moral questions, Tibet has become a symbol of spiritual resistance and human rights. Through the founding and support of organizations such as International Campaign for Tibet and the Tibet Initiative Germany, the Dalai Lama has helped establish a strong network of supporters. These organizations promote awareness of human rights and cultural preservation in Tibet and provide platforms for activism and education. His Holiness has traveled a lot of countries and given lectures worldwide. These journeys are crucial for raising awareness of the situation in Tibet and mobilizing support for Tibet. At these events, he often speaks about universal themes such as peace, compassion, and the importance of inner peace, which attracts a wide audience. Thousands of visitors listen to his speeches for hours. His Holiness has always promoted dialogue between different cultures and religion. Through this participation in interfaith dialogues and meetings with leading figures in politics and science, he has built bridges between Tibet and the rest of the world. This openness has given many people the opportunity to engage more deeply with Tibet. His Holiness has effectively used the power of media to spread his message. Interviews, documentaries, and numerous books have helped him reach and raise awareness among an international audience. The Dalai Lama has recognized the potential of modern communication tools and used social media to spread this message worldwide. Through platforms like Twitter and Facebook, he reaches millions of people and can communicate directly with supporters and those interested in his work, and has also made Tibet visible to younger generations. Perhaps he is an influencer, I think so. The digital presence strengthens global networking and commitment to the Tibetan cause. His Holiness activities have also strengthened the Tibetan diaspora. His leadership provides exiled Tibetans with a shared identity and a point of reference. Furthermore, by establishing the Central Tibetan Administration headquarters in Dharamsala, he has created a platform that supports Tibetan culture and concerns worldwide. His consistent non-violent strategy made the Tibetan movement credible and resonate with the world. The 5-point peace plan, the Salzburg Declaration, presented Tibet as an example for diplomatic resistance. This attitude meant worldwide support and led to Tibet becoming a moral touchstone for human rights in Western media and international organizations. The Dalai Lama therefore rightly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. This award drew global attention to his efforts toward peaceful dialogue and non-violent solution to the Tibetan question. The Dalai Lama is known worldwide as a symbol for peace and compassion. His philosophy of non-violence and reconciliation has inspired many people to become involved in supporting Tibet. His Holiness advocates a non-violent approach in the struggle for Tibet autonomy, which has earned him the respect and the support of many people and organizations dedicated to human rights and peace. The Dalai Lama has used his persona as a bridge between cultures. Under his leadership, Tibet has he was formed from a geopolitical marginalized country into a symbol of compassion, peace, and identity in exile. These universal values resonate with people from diverse backgrounds and have helped to raise global awareness to the plight of Tibetans. In doing so, the Dalai Lama created a transnational movement under unites religions, politics, and culture, and transformed the exiled community into a global network of solidarity. His appeal to humanity's fundamental ethical values has helped many people identify with the Tibetan cause and advocate for it. Overall, he achieved worldwide mobilization for Tibet not through political power, but through moral authority, universal values, and a profoundly human message. Peace begins in its own heart. Through this charismatic leadership, his tireless commitment to peace and his skillful use of media, His Holiness has succeeded in captivating people worldwide with the plight of Tibet. His role as a spiritual and political leader has provided Tibetan networks with a global platform and strengthened global awareness of Tibet. The Dalai Lama, especially in our time, is probably the last true visionary. And that's precisely why this message is more important for humanity today than ever before. As a lawyer, I wondered whether the Dalai Lama's stance is also reflected in decisions by Germany's highest courts. And indeed, the Federal Patent Court, for example, ruled that the Dalai Lama stands as a bridge builder between religions and cultures. His work has led to Buddhism concepts and values gaining recognition and respect in Western societies. As a spiritual leader and symbol of national identity, he has significantly contributed to Tibetan Buddhism being perceived not as an exotic fringe phenomenon, but as a vibrant, respected world religion. In another ruling, the Federal Administrative Court wrote that the Dalai Lama functions not only as a spiritual figure, but also as the center of a functioning quasi-government network that provides administrative support to Tibetan exiles worldwide, including in Germany. If the Dalai Lama has a legacy, it lies in demonstrating that the peaceful path to conflict resolution is not a sign of weakness, but rather the highest form of political and moral strength. The German legal system has adopted and recognized this in several respects. The peaceful path to conflict resolution is Tibet's gift to the world. The Dalai Lama once said he would live to 113. So we can hope that he still be able to return to Tibet. I wish this him, the Tibetans, and the whole world. Thank you.
As we talked about celebrating the Year of Compassion and, of course, His Holiness Dalai Lama's 90th birthday, Tibetans in the free world, we can celebrate wherever and how we can celebrate. we are in a free world. But Tibetans inside, they have so much wish, the eagerness, the urge to celebrate His Holiness Dalai Lama, but they cannot even just leave aside celebrating His Holiness Dalai Lama's birthday, but even mentioning the word Dalai Lama would land in prison. So, as a musician, I know so many musicians would love to have come to Dharamsala, as I did, to sing for His Holiness Dalai Lama on his 90th birthday on the 6th of July last year. I was thinking how I should invite the Tibetan singers to sing for His Holiness Dalai Lama. So I was thinking, and then I found this beautiful piece, a song from Tibet. And today I would like to play this song to you. And I want you to say hello to my invisible Tibetan musician here, who will play with me, of course, and symbolically. But please, just give me 1 second just to... It's not so easy to have somebody from Tibet come here.
völlig unbeschwert das Leben.
So you see a little bit how difficult it is to invite amazing musician from Tibet, the Chinese, wall of this fire. I'm going to now sing you a song. I feel that this is a song by the 6th Dalai Lama. Because in the olden times, when people came to Tibet, especially to the central Tibet, as a pilgrim, to get blessed by His Holiness Dalai Lama and countless protectors. And when these pilgrims went back to their home, they have to cross a pass called Kambalamo. So they look back for the last time and prostrate and pray that they can come again to be blessed by the Buddha, His Holiness Dalai Lama, and the countless protectors of Tibet. This is called Kambalamo. Kambalamo is a lesser jiggy, Majipeleshi, Lamutz. Whoa. This is the Tibetan power, the thunder. I'm wearing the Vajra here. When I was a little boy, my mom used to tell me, Loten, sing these songs, because one day they're going to be very rare.
Thank you, Namling, and thank you to all the speakers for those thoughtful and inspiring tributes. We now move to the keynote segment of today's program, and it's my pleasure to invite Professor Ajit Sikand, Professor Emeritus of Indology and Comparative Religious Studies, affiliated with Goethe University, Frankfurt, and the University of Mainz. It was Professor Sikand who conceived the idea for today's event and whose long-standing personal connections with the Tibetan scholarly and spiritual community made it possible to secure Professor Samdhong Rinpoche as a keynote speaker, a testament to the trust and esteem in which he is held. It is therefore both a natural and a deeply personal honor for him to introduce Professor Samdhong Rinpoche to this distinguished audience. Professor Sikand.
respected Samdhong Rinpoche ji, illustrate presence and the speakers in the hall. I have been given a task to show light to a son. To a son who has been, I'm a little emotional, a son who has been teaching us to celebrate the legacy of Dalai Lama. When I started thinking about this event, generally we see people, those who smoke on a cigarette packet is written, it's dangerous and hazardous for your health. It was a cigarette break with Thea that we conceived this event to have an idea that there was not a public lecture in Frankfurt on occasion of 90th birthday of His Holiness. The obvious approach was Professor Dr. Roland Koch, where we already had the occasion of celebrating with his monumentalist help the 70th and 80th birthday of His Holiness on a grand scale. Both the events were in the Paul Station, which is a very historical event location for such celebrations. It was early 90s when my teacher, Professor Edmund Weber, steered me to Rinpoche Samdhong. As a young scholar, young academic, looking for new research ideas, looking some more things to do in your life. Because for us, or for me at least, Tibetans are the integral life of India. We are born and brought up with Tibetans. I had the opportunity of spending a lot of time and being driver of Rinpoche for the previous days, and gave us opportunity to exchange ideas and also to highlight what has happened in the past. So what happened in the past, going with the help of Professor Edmund Weber and meeting Rinpoche Samdhong. But when this event was created, I had 3 approaches and 3 greetings. And first greeting was Professor Roland Koch, with his permission. Second greeting was Thea Moore, with her permission. And the third greeting was Professor Edmund Weber. I was visiting India. The Indian tradition is I cannot invite a guru like Rinpoche Samdhong on a telephone or on email. So I went personally to request him and grace us here in Frankfurt. So today, he's here. All the efforts that he has made, long way flight, despite of the war, the closure of Pakistan airspace for us, that the flight, a 7.5 flight, thank you Air India for that. It says 10.5 hours flight, taking all that trouble and pain in this green age of 86. For my meeting, I had a very small slot. My flight got canceled from Delhi to Dharamsala. We took a taxi, 11 hours from Delhi to Dharamsala. 11 hours. And also 11 hours back because there was no flight. So I had to come by taxi again. But believe me, every second, every moment of this thought to meet him and to request him. And I thought he will say, yes, I will come. He says, oh, you have brought 3 heavyweight greetings for me. It's good. And he has just returned from Leh after his teachings, the high elevation, which is much higher than Dharamsala. And he said, if you mean it sincerely, it will happen. So I think we were sincere. So every week I kept on calling him. He doesn't have this apparatus. He has a beautiful, very classical, small piece. So every week I requested, and I just inquired about his health. I'm not asking him to come to Frankfurt anymore, because for a guru or for a professor, once said is enough, and I don't have to repeat it. But the repeated phone calls made him aware, and one fine day he said, I have reserved a slot for you. Thank you very much. But this slot was this slot had to be this particular day because Professor Karl-Heinz Paqué was not available on any other day than this particular day. So thank you are here. My obvious choice was the Naumann-Stiftung just for one particular purpose, because we have done a lot of events in the past, in Brussels, in Germany, also with the greatest help of Professor Roland Koch. So we have been having conferences on various occasions. I still remember the Diacony of Religions that happened in Frankfurt at the Diacony with Thea Moore, and we were there for a wonderful conference that we had. So it gave me an opportunity to rethink and reposition the visibility of Tibet that has been missing for a while, as His Holiness Dalai Lama has been traveling less because of his age and health. So being considerate to that, there was no question for me to go to His Holiness' office to request this, but my obvious choice was Rinpoche Samdhong. When we look at whole of the history, we grew up with the Tibetans as small children in Delhi. We have seen them. I had the luck, I would say, to be in Tibet for 6 times, one time Kailash Mansarovar, and I have experienced Tibet. We have experienced Tibet, but we have also seen the sufferings of Tibet. The sufferings of Tibetan that we see, what is the healthcare for them, which is most important. They don't have access to that. Tibetans are not allowed to do business in their own country independently. They need to have a Chinese partner. Whereas Tibetans in India, in Delhi, they are an integral part of the services, normal life. They do their business. We just cannot imagine that we would be living without Tibetans in India. It's not possible. They came to India with a hope that this political problem will be solved in the due course of time, because generally problems are short-lived. And these problems which are short-lived, the general initial idea was, it may take 1 year, it may take 2 years, it may take a few more years, but not this time of length. That was not imaginable for us. A stage came when we started thinking, it's so nice. His Holiness is there. And he said, I'm the greatest ambassador of India because I live in India. So there is nobody who can do a better service to India than His Holiness. Any person in the world, when he thinks about His Holiness, he automatically thinks about India. So normally we should say, we don't need a Tibetan solution because you're welcome to stay in India. But separating from a homeland, those who have done in the past, the German history is very popular for that. They have lived in this divided country, and this country was united without a drop of bloodshed. And this is what is Holiness' message, that we need peace and non-violence to achieve our goals. And I would like to remind you, there was one general in Mustang who was on an armed way to fight for the freedom of Tibet, and His Holiness called him back and requested him to stop his activities in the direction of this violence achievement. He said, no, this is not my path. I am not going to do this. I request you to stop the violent activities. This is His Holiness. When I met Rinpoche once here in Frankfurt, last time when he visited, we talked about Tibet House, and Professor Paqué talked about it. The Tibet House, olden Tibet House was smaller, and we went to see Professor Dr. Roland Koch, and the present Tibet House is his efforts that we could get that place for us. But when we met there, the head of the Tibet House said, Professor Sikand, we have rule of the house. Please don't take any pictures when Rinpoche Samdhong is speaking. Please don't make any video when Rinpoche Samdhong is speaking. This is our rule of the house. So I shut down my camera and I said, I respect that, thank you very much. So there was a long queue. People were being introduced to His Excellency, and I was at the end of the queue. I was the last person. So he looked at me and said, oh, you have also come? I said, yes, sir. So then I asked him a decent statement. I said, Guruji, is it okay if I take a picture of you when you are giving your sermon? Or can I make a small video of your sermon? He looked at me, and Seringla was next to him. He said, God gave me this face. I have no copyright on it. And then he said, the word I speak, it's no more mine, it's yours. It's up to you if you want to take it or you want to let it go. So we are now eager to hear your words, Guruji.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Respected Professor Roland Koch, Professor Sujeet, and many other senior friends, and sisters and brothers. We have already overstepped the 10th schedule, which was announced and circulated, so I shall be very brief. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Dr. Sujeet for giving me this opportunity to visit Frankfurt after many years, and I was able to see a number of very old friends and respected friends. And this was, I think, great opportunity for me, so I appreciate. And secondly, I must remember the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation's contribution and cooperation given to me sometime in the year 1991. At that time, I was working the draft committee of the Charter for Tibetans in Exile. His Holiness was in great hurry to make the Tibetan administration completely democratized. This vision was his childhood vision, and he was not able to do it in Tibet due to Chinese interference. And as soon as he arrived in Mussoorie in 1959, the second week he began to reform and rearrange all the setup of it, government-in-exile. And during that period, he asked to devolve his responsibilities to the elected leader, but to evolve a democratic culture and knowledge among the Tibetans in exile took much time. And 1999, then he asked me to implement his visions as soon as possible. So then we have drafted the Charter for Tibetans in Exile. There's a kind of basic law for the Tibetan administration. And for that, the setup of the parliament and arrangements of the parliament procedures, we need a fund. It is easy to find funds for health, education, old age homes, or settlements. But for the establishment of elected democratic institutions, most of the donors think this is kind of bureaucratic work and not worth to fund. So then Friedrich-Naumann Foundation was the first organization to take care of that, and we are able to make arrangements for the drafting of charter, election of the parliament members, and all these democratic processes were being properly funded by the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation. So the democratization of Tibetans in exile owes a great deal to the support of the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation. Having said that, today we are celebrating the 19th birth year of His Holiness, and it has a number of significance. First of all, the 19th birth year is by the count of age, of course, it is very important. And secondly, the importance was, you might remember 2011, as soon as His Holiness devolved his political responsibilities to the elected members, he announced that he might be the last Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama institution may not be relevant and necessary for the people of Tibet. So therefore, the people should decide whether the institution of Dalai Lama should continue or not. If people decide anyway, he will respond it to when he reached to the age of 84, the age of the first Dalai Lama. And then he reached to the 84 years of age. We requested him to announce whether the institution of Dalai Lama will continue or not. Then he postponed it against his earlier decision. He still needs that the people respond more popular way. So then only last year, when his 19th birthday was celebrated, then he was agreed to look to the petitions of the numerous people's request to accept the continuation of the institution of Dalai Lama. Then the huge number of petitions, not only from the Tibetans, but also non-Tibetan Buddhist followers, such as Mongolians and Chinese and Russian people and Indian people, Nepal and Bhutan. Countless positive requests for continuation of Dalai Lama. Then he announced that during the last 19th birthday celebration, he finally announced if the people's wish in that way, then he will accept the request and the institution of Dalai Lama will continue. So therefore, this year is another significance is that announcement. So therefore, we have a kind of assurance that the institution of Dalai Lama will not end with the life of the present Dalai Lama. So therefore, this is... then of course, the legacies of present Dalai Lama, you all are aware of, I need not to remind again. But his 4 commitments is well known to everyone. He was humane. He must work for the promotion of human values. The degradation of human value is the cause of all challenges which are facing today. And then secondly, as a Buddhist practitioner, a Buddhist monk, he must work for religious harmony among the various religious traditions. And as a leader of Tibet, he should look with the welfare of the Tibetan people and preservation of Tibetan culture and language and religious traditions. And since he was the longest guest to the India, he also, the 4th commitment was to preserve and promote the ancient Indian wisdom, which is very much relevant in postmodern civilization as well. So these are 4 commitments he have shared in his heart and working for ceaselessly until now. In order to promote the human value, his 2 teachings are very important relevance. The first teaching of the universal responsibility, a sense of universal responsibility for every individuals. And secondly, how to promote the human ethics through a secular way in the process of education. The secular ethics teaching, which has been academically frameworked by the Emory University, and now it is being accepted and practiced more than 36 or 37 various countries in various continents. So this is growing very fastly. And I think this would be one of these most significant legacy which would be beneficial to entire human community. So what we can do to assist His Holiness for materializing his commitments and his visions I always request people that, first of all, we shall have to understand what he is talking about. Not believe in, but understand then through one's own rational mind, examination, and try to find it through positive inquiry system, and the realization, and that realization should lead to put them into one's own life, and only then the person will qualify it to promote these commitments. So I would request to everyone, whosoever is loving the present important Dalai Lama, should learn about his teachings and put them in one's own living system. And today, the 25th April, has another significance. I would like to remind you is that the 25th April is the birthday of the present Panchen Lama, which was recognized by His Holiness. And Panchen Lama and all his parents, relatives are not visible, vanished since a long time, and even people do not know whether they are alive or not. But today is the 35th birth anniversary of the Panchen Gendun Chuchinyama. So we should send good wishes to him, and also prayer, or do everything possible to convince the Chinese rulers to release him, to give him basic humane freedom, so that he can lead acceptable and honorable life and do his duties as a recognized Panchen Lama. I am grateful to Dr. Ajit Singh and his organizations for inviting me, and I also thank you very much for all of you to gathering here and patiently to observe the 19th birth year as a year of compassion, which is the essence of His Holiness teaching. And I hope everyone should try to inculcate selfless compassion to all sentient beings as far as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rinpoche, for your deeply moving and inspiring words. On behalf of the organizers, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the distinguished speakers, the guests, being part of this meaningful celebration. This morning, we have not only listened, we have reflected, remembered, and reconnected with the timeless values of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, embodies compassion, humility, courage, and an unwavering belief in humanity. His life is not just a journey, it is a light that has guided millions across borders, beliefs, and generations. As we celebrate 90 remarkable years of his extraordinary life, let us carry forward not just his message, but his spirit, gentle, resilient, and full of hope. The program is still not end. We have Namingla with us, but we have some Tibetan snacks also for you all. It's been a long morning for every one of us. I would request you all to please get your snacks and come back, and we will have Namingla again with us for 10 minutes. Thank you so much. You could get the food here, and he will be continuing with the music.
Please enjoy the momos. And I'll play a flute. This is a flute by people in Amdo.
Akaduzo ai onarang cherengo na bumburo lungi ona singurias atagene nubo ona sunzo morengo ya shanya